Mickey's hands almost at the top. Okay, we will look for the meeting to start with pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll open the public hearing for the noise ordinance. We need, if you could read the public hearing. Sorry.
Notice is hereby given that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Lake Placid will hold a public hearing on Monday, June 16th, 2025 at 5 p.m. in person at North Elba Town Hall, 2693 Main Street, first floor, Lake Placid, New York, and via video conference to consider the following. Proposed local law number 2 of 2025, a local law to replace chapter 200 of the Code of the Village of Lake Placid regarding noise control. The link to the video conference will be the same as for that day's board meeting and available on the village website. That day's board meeting will immediately follow the conclusion of the public hearings. A complete copy of the proposed law may be found on the village website at https://northelba.villageoflakeplacid.ny.gov, or you may obtain a copy by emailing the village clerk at lpclerk@villageoflakeplacid.ny.gov. All interested persons are invited to participate in the public hearing and will be given an opportunity to be heard. This local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. Signed, Anita A. Esling, Village Clerk.
Okay, and I'd just like to remind the board that unlike our board meetings where they're for us, this is a public hearing for the audience. And we're just basically, our job is to listen to what is said so we can take it into account and use it. And boy, this is great. This is probably the second biggest crowd we've ever had. I do thank everybody for turning out. The job of being on a village board and making decisions is not an easy one, and having public input is very valuable. So thank everyone in advance for coming. Also, we will have to limit the amount of time people can speak, just so that we can all get out of here before midnight. I guess let's open it up to, we'll make a time limit of 3 minutes per person. That sound logical? And I've been in situations like that. Be careful you don't read a thank you to everyone for the hard work, because you use up all your time. So we do accept that that's probably going to be the point, and just give us your opinion. Would anyone like to start off?
Could you actually talk about the change and share with we all read it, but clarifying what is different from before?
Sure. Would you like to give us the overview of that?
Sure.
Two of you?
Yeah, Jackie, feel free to jump in.
It's all you.
Yeah,
I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing.
Okay.
I don't know if this is me.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Okay.
So I'll speak up, and if anybody, especially at the back, can't hear, then just let me know.
Thank you.
So in terms of just the proposed changes, there are kind of 3 main changes that are proposed. And one is having noise limits during the day. I think right now there's absolutely no restriction on noise during the daytime hours. And I think that the feedback that we got from some people was that was challenging, and that it was difficult for the police to kind of deal with situations where there were issues. And so the intention is to try to kind of offer some boundaries around that for the daytime hours. The proposal around the nighttime hours is that they remain the same, both in terms of timing and in terms of kind of noise level. The language hasn't really changed there. And then the other change would be to how the enforcement is framed for businesses. For residents, it's proposed to stay the same. But for businesses and commercial properties, the idea is that right now, the current rule is that it's subject to a criminal penalty, and effectively, and Chuck, jump in if I get any of this wrong, but the challenge with that is that basically whoever is there on the door, kind of the first person that people see, gets served with either a criminal summons. And the idea with shifting to this proposal to having it be a civil penalty is that the person who's the kind of manager or owner can then take more responsibility, and arguably they're the person who's responsible for the premises writ large. So I think that rather than just having the person who's working the door or, the kind of first person on the scene be the one who has to be responsible and interact, then it's more someone who's in charge of the property.
So it's switching from criminal to civil?
For commercial, yeah.
We're pretty much doing that with all our laws, to be honest with you. It kind of comes down to if you've got a vacation rental and someone does something wrong, we're not putting you in jail. So that really inhibits the law, but if you can make it a civil penalty where it's a dollar amount, that makes it easier. Any other questions? Did that answer your questions for you? I'm
Yeah.
clarifying what we're
She
doing.
said there was 3 differences and I kind of only heard 2. So I was wondering, did I miss it or?
The 3 differences are,
Yeah, well, I think 3 aspects I should have said. So no, it's a good catch and good careful listening. So
So is the section on variances and exceptions identical to what it was before?
the variance and exceptions is a little bit expanded, but I think that I think that that's just mirroring what other localities have done to just kind of explain that section in a little bit more detail. But I think the substance hasn't shifted very much.
Could you tell us what is the expansion on the variation since it has changed from before?
So I think that it basically just lists out, different exceptions like, snow removal and, like lawn maintenance, that kind of thing.
What about noise control? Is there any variation in what was done before and what is now done for noise control?
In terms of the
Variance?
Yeah, so I think that the proposal now is that for the daytime hours, that there's a decibel limit. And the proposal is 65 decibels, which is in line right now with the land use code.
right now, if you lived on Main Street in an apartment, and decided to open your window, put your stereo in the window and turn it on full blast, there's nothing legally we can do about it. And common sense has to, at some point, take over, but when it doesn't, then you need a law. And we have had complaints by people that can't put their children down to bed at night, and that's the impetus for this law coming about. I don't know if that helps clarify it at all.
The changes at night are no different though, don't you say?
Chuck, you can explain that one.
Well, just the difference would be the decibel reading, I would say, from the old law to the current law. We weren't using a decibel meter before now.
Yeah, because the volume isn't going to much change. It's just that now we have a way of tracking it. We purchased a decibel machine and it's calibrated once a year, so we know that it's accurate. So it's no longer subjective. It's an actual measurement.
Hello, can I be heard in the meeting?
Sure, just give us 1 second. Someone else has already raised their hand, but I'll be back to you.
Certainly.
From what I've read so far, it's residential and businesses.
It's businesses. Residential isn't a problem at the time, if I'm not mistaken. Is that
But
correct?
everything applies to both.
What we had was working fine in the residential side, so we're leaving that alone.
How about vehicles?
We did have to distinguish between, let's say, a motorcycle going by and bang, it's a quick noise, it's coming, it's gone. That's different than, say, a band that's there for 3 hours.
Yeah, it seems like that's what's being targeted here, and I mean, I'm just saying what it is.
Sure.
And I was up here 2 weekends ago. And it was like 400 motorcycles were louder than any band could ever.
If you can change federal laws, that would be great. I agree with you. I've been a 46er and I've been on the top of a 46er and I could hear a bike going by down on the road miles and then.
I'm an outdoor guy. I'm a four-wheeler. I'm not afraid of, I like noise. Go to stock car races,
But I think you could answer that. If it comes out of the factory that way, there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, there's DMT laws that, if it's modified, except that we can enforce the state law. But yeah, there's nothing in the local law.
I think they make
addressing
more
that.
noise than any band.
But like I
that comes
said.
out of our.
But like I said, a bike goes by and it's gone like that. To be honest with you, if this.
One bike does,
That's right.
not the 300 that came through all day long.
Yeah.
We make all
Yeah, it's
We can
also like
speak
if this room
when we
decided to have a heated discussion, I trust you, you would go up into the yellow marker that harmful to the ears.
Oh, yeah,
And so,
I'm
you
not
know,
disagreeing.
If I might say, I'm Catherine from Lake Placid Pub Brewery and Big Slide here in Lake Placid, not anywhere else. Not my job, other job, I'm just representing our businesses. And I think the point is that it does feel very targeted to restaurants and bars and businesses when there are other things going on. That get at that decibel of noise, and this noise ordinance. To me, feels very targeted towards local restaurants, bars. Anything that has live music in particular or outside music, things like that, and. That's where I have a problem with this, is that there's so many, things underneath each rule that, this is an exemption and this is an exemption, but there's never an exemption towards our local music and musicians that we're trying to support.
when you say musicians, you've been in business how long?
Almost, well, 1996.
Yeah, I don't remember one time you had a band outside that was loud in all the years.
We would be over 65 decibels for certain.
Where? Where are the bands?
We've
We stopped having them,
we've had them in the parking lot.
yeah.
Yeah, like during Iron Man or something like that.
Not just then, I mean, we had live music every other week for about 3 years, and some of them were outside.
So there's also, was going to be put into the noise ordinance, but it didn't get in there. It is. We were talking about having exemptions for certain times of the year. It's not like you're every weekend or every night, but you could apply for a variance. But it wasn't put in there because that permit process is already in place. So if you chose an outside band, you could apply for a noise variance.
The one thing that, and I'm not gonna use this as my 3 minutes, Mayor, but consent from affected property owners is gonna be a qualification for an exemption. That seems both very vague and probably unachievable. Because how am I supposed to send a registered letter to the 150 people that live around the pub? Who clearly are, at least one of them is gonna say no, and then my variance is gone.
Yeah, of course, it's also, if you send letters out for something like that, it's at the village board's discretion on what is or isn't best for the community. So it's not a slam dunk deal just because one person doesn't want you to have a band.
So if the board is deciding, why am I spending the money to send 150 certified letters or not?
Well, just so people know, I mean, it doesn't do people much good if all of a sudden you have a band, they knew nothing about it.
And I think it also doesn't stipulate certified letters.
You understand my point, is that if
I do.
if you don't want to hear a band across from your place, you're not gonna consent. And it's gonna go to the board's gonna decide on a variation, so that seems like an extraordinarily unnecessary and vague way to give a variance.
Well, we walk a very hard tightrope here. We have the public to represent and we have the businesses to represent and everybody else. And when one business can be allowed to hurt other businesses or hurt the public, that's where we have to step in, and that's where the complaint came, and that's what spawned all of this.
And we're here kind of, we don't, like I said earlier, we don't have a lot of live music, but we are here to support because we believe that the live music that our friends and neighbors at neighboring businesses are bringing in are really helping to keep our nightlife alive in Lake Placid, and that's very important to a pub and to Big Slide. I mean, you know, it's very important that we have some energy in this town to keep those things going. So we're here in support of
And even
others
to the
as well.
extent of the locals not being able to sleep or another business.
9:30 at night is pretty early.
I thought we were talking about.
But yes, but 65 decibels would be, it would be at 8 o'clock at night as well, which is almost impossible. We have a decibel reader.
We're gonna get a refusal from any board members that live across the street from the business.
Yeah, they should recuse themselves right now.
Three in
Absolutely.
particular, the law of recusal states that if there are people who have given personal complaints to said businesses, you have to recuse themselves
And they should recuse themselves right now.
right now.
Right now, they're not voting on anything. You don't want them to listen to your opinion?
We would
Is
love
that
to.
what you're saying?
but
Okay, well, that's what that's now all we're doing right now.
But can we identify who those people are?
Well, go ahead, you brought this up, would you like to identify who the people are?
No, you can identify it.
Well, you just asked, I
There was
mean,
no name given.
No,
Yeah, we.
Yeah, we know. I think very easy.
Public
We
knowledge.
all,
We all know.
I mean, so I used to own the motel that was affected by one, so I guess I should be recused.
you are also living in this town 6 months out of the year.
Isn't
Okay,
that a great rumor? Have you have any proof of that? I can't believe the number of people that say, oh, you're back from Florida. I said, yeah, I've been here since January first. Well, if that's your opinion, I would love to have you look at my calendar.
Sure.
2.5 months is about the amount of time. That's
Get a
not
copy
6
for you.
months.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, hey, if you've got a way for me to get out of here for 6 months, let me know, but I've not been found a way to do it, because I made a pledge when I came into office that I would be here as much as I was needed.
You live here full time? Are you full time?
Yes, I'm a full-time resident. I vote here, I pay taxes here. If I hadn't, trust me, I would have made a lot of money, but I didn't. I gave it up so I could be mayor. George?
Yeah, I just, this is about a village noise thing. I'm out of the village, but this is about the gunfire coming from the Fishing Game Club. In the last few years is unbearable. I mean, I come home and my wife's out in the yard and the cops are over there with machine guns. My mountain dogs didn't come home until dark. You ever see dogs in a thunder and lightning storm? 7 days a week, nonstop shooting. Here's a petition that I'm just getting going. It's got 20-something names on it, so we aren't here till midnight.
But,
So I've got a copy of this. I'm gonna keep adding to
but
it.
remember, we're the village.
I know that, but see,
But the town who you have to talk to,
sound has no boundaries.
but we can't control the sound that comes from the
Well, I
town.
just want you to be aware of that I'm gonna pass this petition more and get
To
more
the town.
names. And all the town, but I just wanted you guys to be on this too, because everybody up to here with it.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So you folks have a good one.
Thank you. There was somebody online who was.
Yeah, I was wondering, how was 65 decibels created as the threshold?
It's the threshold, or by definition, above that, you could have hearing damage.
Okay, and that's what I thought, but somebody had brought up earlier some things about exemptions and exceptions. And there was an exemption about music that's municipally sponsored that was not in the previous one. And my thought is this: if the threshold is because it's unsafe, how can we then provide an exception for unsafe events as long as they're municipally sponsored? What we're talking about, I think, is, obviously live music on Main Street, sounds at the park. I think there can be a valid reason to have municipally sponsored events, but if the threshold for 65 is based on safety, then I think it's pretty clear that they all have to not be allowed.
Well, and keep in mind that every one of the ones you mentioned applied for noise variance.
Right, but that's my point is, if 65 is set for safety reasons, then I think we have to re-examine why variances are set. Because if 65 is the limit because it's unsafe, not just for the people at the event, but those on neighboring properties that may not have elected to go to the event. And certainly it sounds to the park, you have people that are not at the event, but are around it. And if safety is the issue, and if 65 is the number, then I think there's a concern there about ever setting allowing an exception.
65 above that is the set level that if continuous noise is gone, that's where hearing levels come in.
Correct, so
So
more,
the occasional event is going to cause that, but if it were every day, every night, yes, it would. That's
Okay.
where-
65 decibels is measured at the premise or at the person complaining?
I'd just like to point out that your answer to that was over 65 decibels.
Oh, I agree.
So
It's
so
amazing when
I
you
think
get
we
into
probably
this.
could have listened to you talk.
That's what I said.
For
If
hours,
this group
and
wanted to
the-
start talking
the-
loud, we would go over the noise limit in a heartbeat.
You
And
weren't
we-
talking
That's
about.
why I think, this is kind of ridiculous. I'll take my 3 minutes. if I can. So my name is John Asar. I live up off of Averville Road. I've been coming to this area for 40 years since I was young. Bought a house here about 4 years ago. I come here because I love the wilderness and I'm chasing winter and I love being out here and I like being out in the woods and trails, and high peaks, etc. Couple things that I read in the article. One, there was a study done for the last over a year plus. I'd like to see the results of that study and exactly what the study entailed. And that
There was a study done?
that's what the
That's what
newspaper
the
article said.
report
That's
said.
number one. Number two, I mean, Mr. Devlin, you said that, people come here for the serenity and to read books by the lake. In my 40 years, I've never seen anybody reading a book by Mirror Lake, but it's good if they do.
Well, they have, trust me.
But they don't do it at night, right? So I have a dear friend of mine who did purchase Big Z's. He bought a place that was kind of falling apart. It's kind of run down, put a lot of money into it and made it something that is brand new and something great to this area. And I'm not speaking just for him, I'm speaking for the fact that I love live music. And so I want to come out to a resort town that we live in and be able to go see a band on a night and not have someone call the police every time at 9 o'clock at night to complain about music that everyone's enjoying, locals, tourists, etc. So I think if you're arbitrarily setting a 65 decibel limit that has already been reached in this room, that's ridiculous. And number two, I don't want to drive to Saranac Lake to go see music and then have to drive back and risk getting pulled over after a couple of beers. So I want to come to my town that I live in, that I chose, and listen to live music and enjoy myself without some ridiculous rule that you can't have live music in a resort area. So, and the other part of this that I want to mention is the exceptions. We all know the exceptions are going to be songs at Mirror Lake, which is fantastic, right? I want to always be able to go see that. It's gonna be Ironman, it's gonna be the World Championships of bobsledding when everyone's hanging out at zigzags, let's say. We're gonna shut that down and find them as well.
That, but okay.
Well, you're kind of going back and
It's
forth.
never happened before, but okay, it could.
But it could because people are allowed out in the streets. Never happened before because you're not forcing it because these tourists are the very reason people come to this town for events, for all the great things that happen. So you can't, in my opinion, put a limit on a noise level that's ridiculously low for a live music event in a town that used to have live music events all the time and doesn't anymore because of people calling from across the street.
I don't know, I've lived here all my life, and I don't know about a lot of outdoor bands that were here, but.
Well, there used to be concerts in the Olympic Center, which I'm sure you can hear from outside over 65 decibels. I'm sure it's not soundproof there. There's stuff that's outdoors all the time after the events, like the World Championship of bobsledding, when people come into the streets. All those things have happened, and I'm sure the decibel is well over 65 decibels. So I don't think when you say you're looking at the needs of the public, it's the 6 people that are up here that are looking at the needs of the entire public. I don't see the balance there. It doesn't seem.
We're not the ones that brought this up, the public did.
Well, right,
You
that's
say
why I'd love to
When
see
you
that
look it up
study.
and just, well, when you say study, it wasn't a study, we had people come to us. Well,
Yeah, it's right in the newspaper.
Right in the.
Says here,
Hank, before you, could you give me 1 second? Did we do a study?
We did not do a study.
Okay, so.
the noise ordinance are more than a year of research and consideration of specific complaints of residents and visitors. Where is all that document?
Well, when you say a study,
Research study,
Okay,
right, second
research is
call about
fine.
word,
I mean,
you're
I
doing
will-
your research. That's
I will-
even more than a study.
I will verify that a lot of research was done if you'd like to.
And is it documented? Because I think we'd like to see that.
So, yeah, I think what we did was look at other areas, look at, other municipalities, for their, for their code in terms of their limits, how they framed their rules. We spoke with legal advisors. We obviously looked at the land use code.
It's probably similar to Lake Placid in terms of this type of town.
Yeah,
This
we
is
look-
pretty unique here.
There are 4
We looked
in the
at
United States of America that have noise ordinance rules such as this. And they are a 10 PM noise ordinance, 4. That is it,
There were a lot more that we found.
4.
I agree. I looked today and Boulder had the strictest and theirs was 10 o'clock Monday through Friday or Monday through Thursday. And then on the weekends, it was 11 o'clock. And it didn't, I might have had a specific decibel, but it was not ours. It
No,
was
it was
higher
not.
than ours. And theirs was considered the strictest and I couldn't find one that was a 24-hour noise ordinance.
Wasn't New York City one of the ones you? had to
Yeah,
get
we
off
looked,
of?
we
Yeah.
looked at. several.
Absolutely not. So I lived in New York City for
It's a ch-
30 years, 30 years,
Mhm.
okay?
Did you
And
know
that
this
was,
bring up New
that
York
was,
City?
that was the first place that I worked.
That's an
And
outrageous.
As
New
for
York City.
setting the decibel at 65, the number is 100% based on a superficial Google search. According to the American Speech and Language Association, the definition of noise-induced hearing loss goes into much more detail than simply stating that 70 decibels is known to cause hearing damage. It is simply not the case. And I'm happy to go into all of the specifics of such, okay? So that quote that was in the paper
Mhm.
is incorrect.
I agree.
It was-
And
There was not a study done, but there was 2 years of research done.
well,
So they're
again,
not
we'd
bad,
like.
but
We'd like to see all the research.
We'd like.
That should be publicly available.
Yeah, thousands of pages of research. I would like to see it.
Well, you
And in
sound like we
terms of
sat here and
putting
hired a group. I mean,
that-
people
Well,
sat down and
you-
did
you
the
say
best
you're
they
speaking
could.
for the public, so let those people come forward. Let's see the research. Okay?
Because it seems like the public's
Right
in this
here.
room.
Public's here and it's the second biggest.
Ask your
crowd you
question.
had.
I mean, these are the two people on.
But we like to see the research.
And I just want to remind, we're here to listen.
Yeah, but my fault for getting into that.
Yeah. So we've heard a lot from the other side, which is what brought this law on.
Now, where are they?
Where would you like to see the research then? You can't just speak of it.
So I got a follow-up question on this.
What you just said, we're here to listen. We are not here to interact with you. We are here to.
Yes, we have questions.
Questions based on your print in
You're not.
the newspaper, you know.
You believe everything you read in the newspaper?
Yeah, I do.
We are talking.
We're
Val,
the nine.
I can definitely believe if you're gonna be disrespectful.
Yeah.
I just wanna comment, I don't wanna accuse anybody of anything. I just wanna comment on the fact that live music is an important component of my community. As somebody who likes to go out and listen to music, as somebody who performs, and I performed at the pub out, and it was a long time ago, and Hint would like to do it again, but it's important. It's supporting our businesses. It brings people in to support the establishments. We've spent a lot of time and effort trying to help our local businesses survive. I just filled out a DMP survey for Roost, and now we're doing something that seems counteractive to that. And I hope you guys are listening to this type of constructive input about why I really think you should rethink this. And we're not just talking about it at night. I understand at night things are an issue, but this ordinance is during the day too. I'm getting old. I love the 5 to 8 gig.
Yeah.
But that's gonna impact even that for me. Like I can't do the 10 to 2 exact anymore. I don't wanna do that, but to not even be able to go out and play a gig from 5 to 8 in town outside, and my band's too big to fit inside. I just think I don't think it's helping our businesses all that much to put that kind of restriction.
I'd like to ask a question if I could.
Hang on, you have to be recognized 1 second. We have other people here. And I apologize. As mayor, I'm used to working with people and trying to explain things. And I should know, we're here to listen. I made that statement, so I will stop interacting and answering questions for now and just let people speak, and we'll take that. And I apologize, but I'm sure in the back, I think we were.
Yeah, hi, my name is David McGraw, and my family's been here really since the 1920s, before the 1932 Olympics. And my family is, well, we've been involved in a lot, everything from supporting professional skaters, NICEF, Adirondack Health, LPCA, many organizations and foundations, and we really pride ourselves on giving back to this community, not taking things away. So, and we're not about buying real estate and having real estate sit idle or stripping services, tourism services from existing real estate. That's a whole other topic that should be taken up at some point. But from my personal standpoint, I'm all about enhancing the spirit of music and the arts in Lake Placid. And quite honestly, this is a tough battle. I've been performing music in Lake Placid since the summer of 1976, starting at Maxwell's, which is currently Generations. And through the years with my close friend Rusty Lavacek in different configurations, we played almost every bar and restaurant in Lake Placid, indoors, outdoors, day and night, and received nothing but tremendous gratitude and thankful appreciation. Outside of songs at Mirror Lake and the Sinfonetta, I'm here to express my personal disbelief in how hostile this board is to the performing arts, and how your 930 performing arts sound ordinance is dampening the music culture here, certainly. It has been recently researched that no other popular mountain town, well, we just talked about this, I guess a few others, has a 9:30 p.m. curfew. By the way, Saranac Lake, as we all know, is much more vibrant in the music scene. But it really wasn't until a few years ago when I approached you, the town government, inquiring about my band, the McGraw Project, performing a free concert at the band shell, offering to underwrite all costs for all safety services and sound. You had no interest. You said any performances at the band shell had to be within the scope of Songs of Mirror Lake, not willing to take any extra steps to bring enjoyment to music lovers in the village. My next call was to LPCA, and they immediately welcomed us. And a week later, we performed to an audience of over 200 people. Last summer, I attended a meeting, this government body, where I listened to another member of a reputable local band offering to play 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon during the lacrosse tournament He had every angle of safety and service covered in his presentation and was told to go find a site outside of town to perform. I'm sure you all remember that. Shocking display of the culture of no change instead of how can we be inclusive and make this work so that everyone benefits, which really should be considered in this whole sound ordinance situation. On numerous occasions, I've been performing at Big Z's with my band, the McGraw Project, and sure enough, at 9:35 p.m. after the indoor-outdoor garage doors was closed up, I'm very grateful to the Lake Placid Police Department, but showed up stating there had been a noise complaint within the neighborhood. And as we just touched on, not too difficult to figure out that one. Lake Placid used to be a music-filled community known for high-level music entertainment coming to town and performing on any given night past 9:30, believe it or not. But those days are long gone, and tourists and visitors who come here to experience a vibrant Olympic village are told to wander the streets if they want to be outside their hotels or rental properties. That's such a lost opportunity for small business, as well as tourists missing out on a potentially festive evening experience that this town should be offering. On another note, I just purchased the Austrian Welcome Center, the round building on Saranac Avenue. And my thinking has been to create a beautiful setting for a daytime and evening music center. I'd like to help raise the bar on professional and legacy talent coming to Lake Placid. But the problem is that your hostility is causing me great concern. If I'm hosting a well-known artist on a Friday or Saturday night and have to shut down at 9:35 p.m. because of minor music bleed through the glass structure which exists in that building, well, that's not a great look for the internationally recognized Olympic Village. I'm not sure what my approach is with this effort in this building. It's a town icon. I'd love to keep it there, not tear it down and build condos. But I will continue to do everything I can to bring back the vibrancy of the arts here in Lake Placid, despite what goes on here. In addition to songs, LPCA, and Sinfonetta. I also hope you widen your tolerance to bring more arts and entertainment to the band shell, which is so appallingly underused. So
I hate to ask you this, but if it's not much longer, then we better have that a written submission because we won't get to everybody else.
Any more I can do?
I,
Yeah, is there any more?
we're there.
okay, but if you could submit that in writing, that would be
I
great.
will submit that,
I
but
appreciate it.
net is, you are squashing the music culture here in Lake Placid. You are squashing nighttime, small business activity. And for what? You know, I think you should put it out to a community vote to see where it sits.
I would love to do that, but I don't believe we're allowed to.
Okay.
There are certain laws of things we can. I'm trying to think what one example was. Oh, the use of cannabis in the village. We put that out to a vote. That was legal, but I would love to do that. Because you think it's fun to sit up here and be accused of all these things and serving ourselves. None of us are here to serve
but
ourselves.
I think you have to agree, you really are squashing the vibrance.
That's your opinion.
It is, and it's a strong.
And I think, I hope we hear from other sides of that opinion here, but we'll see.
Right, let's see what happens. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm sorry, Anita has to leave. She has a prior engagement. We have someone else that's taking the minutes.
I was asked,
More of a question, but how many noise complaints did we have last year? On a commercial business that wasn't Big Z's, unfortunately, you guys took the brunt of it, but how many noise complaints in general does Lake Placid get during the day?
So I can tell you about 100 a year on average, and probably about a quarter business and 3/4 are residential.
So 25 business complaints and we want to change the law? That's not really what I'm getting. Is that really true?
And how many people did the 25 complaints come from?
I don't have that in front of me, I'm sorry.
Maybe 85.
Well, we pulled most of them big seats.
Yeah. They happen from Big Z's. We're at 12. We're at once a month and we're sitting in this room right now.
And I know that we're mostly here to listen, but I think, I think just to address the question that has just been raised, and, I know that I have phoned up, and I think in part, that has happened after I've been called by other residents who didn't feel comfortable doing so. So I think, definitely will, put my hand up that phone call has been made by me, but also I think to some degree was, representing other people when that happened.
Well, it's still a very, very low number.
Yeah.
So really, my name is Bill. I have a restaurant in town and I'm also a musician as
What restaurant are you just at?
top of the park.
Okay,
Um,
beautiful spot.
thank you. And I play music as well, pretty regularly, and I understand a noise ordinance for midnight, something like that.
Up just a tad.
Sure,
It's all
yeah. I understand there being a noise ordinance for later in the evening. You mentioned children, people having a hard time putting their kids to bed, right? But to have it 24 hours is, I think, a little unheard of, in my opinion. It doesn't make much sense. You're not only limiting the businesses, the live music scene, but we're also talking about weddings. We're talking about all these outdoor events. There's such a beautiful town, and this noise ordinance thing that you're trying to put through is gonna limit just about every business in town for that, and the reason why people come to this beautiful area. It's so frustrating that how everybody can think that. And another thing that I don't understand is you keep on making reference to the public making complaints. Well, we just found out it was 25 or less people. We're the public as well, you
They
know,
complained to the police department. That doesn't mean people didn't complain to us.
to the police
But
department.
you're talking about people that went to the.
But regardless, we're still the public. Everybody in this room is still the public as well.
Right.
You know, we should have a right to say what we have to say and have the, you know.
Sure, like I said, we appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't, if there's anybody here that's opposing and agree with the noise ordinance, if they're here, they should be here as well. I don't know if there is, but.
And I'd like to follow up on what Bill just said, if I might. I think you had talked about a year's worth of research. Mayor, you had said maybe almost 2 years. And during that time, you were listening to some of the feedback from the other side of the public, as I think they're being referred to. How many stakeholders of the affected businesses during that 1 to 2 years research did you engage while you were writing the new language of the law?
Well, I can mention, I know for one that Big Z's was talked to.
To get some feedback on what might be
Yes.
okay.
Yes,
Right here, Chief talked to me, and that was, my question was, what's your tool for measuring my noise? And there was no answer, so they got a noise decibel reader. That was the research.
That was the research of that 1 year research?
That was absolutely it. They called, my question was, what's the decibel at any given point? And there was no answer, and I had a decibel reader.
Yeah, and I think that's some of our frustration here is I think we're talking about, as you refer to the public, and as Bill said, we're the public too. And if the extent of the 1 year research is a single question like that to one operator that we all know is being affected, that rubs us the wrong way. It says we probably should have had a little bit more input before this meeting when you were looking at how to draft an amendment. And I think then what you end up with is maybe not everybody being on the same page, but maybe being closer together than we are right now. And it just doesn't seem that there was that engagement to do that up until this point. It's frustrating.
I can say one thing, like I say, that's what we're here for, is input. And if you'll notice on our agenda, we have to vote on this tonight. That's because 99.9% of the time that we have a public hearing, nobody shows up, nobody cares, and we vote afterwards. That's why it's on there. Let me finish. In our last board meeting, we did have some people that had comments and questions, and we took it to heart. We tabled it, which is, I'm sure, what's going to happen tonight. We're happy to keep listening, but we do need input from people. So
No, and I think we want to provide it, and I think we could have provided.
people want to talk tonight, talk, and then we'll proceed from there. Sure.
Perfect. Now, I do think somebody else asked a question about putting this up to a vote.
But I went in to a few places and, tried to get some restaurant business owners to get their feelings on things. And, one person that I spoke to was Jason Stoltz at Smoke Signals. And, his concern is, obviously, we all know that they did a great job with that building on Main Street, and they do some weddings and things like that there as well. And he couldn't be here tonight. He's traveling, but I did get permission to kind of just say, that would really affect his business and the weddings bring so much. We have a rehearsal dinner the night before at the pub. They get married at Smoke Signals or wherever. They go to the other places in town. And there's a lot of businesses, I shouldn't say a lot, there's a few buildings that are sitting empty on Main Street. And it's becoming very hard to do certain things. And the reason that we have this passion as a group is because this is our livelihood. This is where we came to choose to build our lives and raise our families. And we all have kids that we're putting to bed at reasonable hours as well. We're not trying to be like, woo-hoo, fight for your right, Lake Placid. In some ways I might be, but also I don't want to see any more of these buildings go. And if we hurt a business like Smoke Signals and they're no longer able to sustain their Main Street presence, that takes a special person to come in that can buy that building, that can build that business, that can run a restaurant like that. And we're all the thriving parts of this community, and we have to work together. We have to be supportive of each other. We can't be calling at 9:31 if there's loud music. We need to be able to come together as a community and say, you know, this might not work for me, or that might work for you, and realize we're not living in the middle of the woods here. We're in a village.
If I could ask.
We want to
maybe-
just support each other.
Maybe you could educate me.
Yeah.
I don't know the laws exactly, but my understanding when Smoke Signals went in and they wanted to have a place for weddings and banquets, they were required to put triple pane glass in to keep the noise on the property.
They do weddings outside.
Do they? Okay.
I don't know. I
But
don't
they're
know.
very
if there's-
respectful. They
but-
don't have outdoor music and they're usually very respectful.
So like I say, that was my understanding. I'm not sure where the disconnect came from making that business put triple pane glass and keep the noise on the property to it not. I'm just saying that.
Jason was from his verbiage to us was that, you know, I was young and I was trying to get this business started. So I was basically saying yes, yes, yes to whatever anybody said for me to do, because I didn't want to have them say, no, you can't come here. So I don't know his legal things and what he had to do, but I do know that I was given permission to say that.
Okay, thank you.
And I really respect them as business owners to have, you know, that beautiful place on Main Street. I think it's important to our community.
All right, Jane.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm MJ Lawrence. I work for the Regional Office of Sustainable Tourism. Many of you know as Bruce. And, you know, we are a destination marketing and management organization. So we play two roles. One is to bring travelers into our communities that we serve, which is all of Essex County, Hamilton County, and half of Franklin County, so the region. You know, vibrant communities are definitely a driving force to bringing travelers in. And that's great restaurants, great music, great retail, all of our outdoor natural resources and attractions. We also have the management side, which is looking at over tourism or economic development where it's needed. And one of the things that we are seeing, and we all know, is the decline in our population in the Adirondacks. And younger people don't want to stay here, and it's very hard to get young people to come back here. And there's multitudes of reasons for that. But having a vibrant, young, fun place to live and be is really important to maintaining and growing our population. So I think that's all, you know, we have to take it all into consideration. It's not just about the traveler. And a lot of times with events and special, you know, things that we do within the community, we get a lot of feedback, like it's all about the tourist, it's all about the traveler, nobody cares about the community. But music is something that serves both. It serves the traveler and it serves the people that live here. And I do think that we should care about the families that live here, and we should care about, you know, the kids and putting them to bed in our school system. And all of that needs to coexist, but you can't throw the baby out with bathwater. No pun intended, we just made that up, but, so I really think that we just need to take a step back, you know. We need these small businesses and we need these restaurants and we need the live music and, you know, you're right, walking down Main Street sometimes, I mean, we've all been down Main Street in the quieter times of the year and it's quiet. And it's not like, we're like, oh, this is nice for a minute. But we don't want it to be like that all the time. And we certainly don't want it to be like that day and night in July and August and September and October. I mean, this is our business, is tourism. It's over 80% of the economic impact in our region. And we can't forget that. And it all trickles down from the builders to the electricians to the plumbers and to the school teachers. We have 14 kids going into kindergarten this year in public school. That's very concerning. So I just will let you all sit with that. It's a multitude of things that we need to take into consideration.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to
Just if I could,
Yeah.
it sounds like everyone in here is the opinion that everyone is for this and no one's against. By any chance, is there anyone in here that has an opinion that differs from the people that are in here that would like to voice their opinion? Please.
Hi, I am actually a member of the public and I do not own a business, sorry, so. But I just would like to say that there might be a way to coexist. I agree with all you have said. Don't disagree at all. And I'm like, is there a difference between music that happens every single day versus music that happen on weekends only? I heard this gentleman that was talking about the gun. And every single day, those people are losing a gasket now because it happens every single day and drives them crazy. Is there a difference between, you know, a Friday night and a Saturday night? Is there a difference between outdoor and indoor? I think the members of the public would be very welcoming music and vibrance in the town if it was indoor or if it was outdoor on certain days. And I'm not talking about the one-off. Several of you have talked about those special events throughout the year that happen outdoor and that are cherished by the entire community. I think that those are obviously, you know, markers in our community and our life, and they should remain, they should stay. But there must be a way that the public and the businesses can find a way to coexist. Yeah, that, you know, I'm a member of the public and that's why I wanted to say something, hoping that it balanced a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for your.
We should be able
Please,
to
go ahead.
find some balance.
No, I'm sorry.
Sir, go ahead.
Yeah, because I was wonderful listening to a lot of the people here because as just a resident who lives here full time, I could really now appreciate their predicament, right? And these are existing locations that are being constrained and it's part of their business model and they're being constrained. What concerns me is that we might kind of allow some of this to just creep into residential areas, inappropriate areas. And we would find ourselves with music venues that just don't belong there. And, you know, that have never been there. And, you know, and I know it's hard for like Big Slide because it's kind of a mixed area. And I can appreciate that that's a wonderful venue for, you know, music outdoors and indoors, you know. So I really appreciate their situation. But on the other hand, as a homeowner, I don't want somebody opening an outdoor venue or maybe using a loophole in the variance thing to, because it just says, you know, duration of time. What does that mean? The whole summer? Getting in there and building something out that's not there. And that would be concerning me. And
Okay.
Sorry, Mrs. Clark.
Thank you very much. Sure.
I just want to pick up, and I'm sorry, I'm just kidding.
I'm MJ Lawrence. And you are?
Howard Love. I'm a summer resident, but I've been coming here also since I was 1 year old, whatever. You know, I'm involved with some charities, one of which is the Adirondack Foundation, and one of the primary things that they seek to address is the fact that we can't hold on to the youth here, that they, you know, grow up and leave. And it just seems like an ordinance like this is going to just be one more thing that drives them away, because it's one less reason to be here. And it just seems, you know, weird that I'm spending a lot of time how to bring back youth, but this seems like kind of a, you know, how to drive youth away. And it's not just the enjoyment of the music, of course, which the youth does, but it's the jobs and the economic impact. You know, they're leaving, you know, the big reason why they leave is there's just simply no, you know, job, they're not the jobs here to keep them.
And housing.
And absolutely, it's not the only thing. But it just strikes me that an ordinance such as this is without a doubt going to have a negative economic impact on the region. It's going to reduce the number of jobs available. It's especially for the youth on the service. You talk about weddings and so forth, you can kiss them goodbye. I don't know how you could do it. You know, wow, what a big economic driver that is. And obviously tourism. And so it's very concerning. It just seems very ill-advised. Secondly, I really do question the 65 dB noise level. That is conversation level. I carry on my iPhone a dB meter because my hearing's like not great, so I really try and do everything I can to protect my ears because I hang on to what's there.
Is that 65?
Yes.
You know, we're talking about normal conversation levels dB is 65. So we're talking about outlawing conversation. I mean, it sounds a little absurd, but you know, and God forbid a cocktail party where you have 30 or 20, 30 or 40 people. Is that now outlawed as well? I've heard that residential isn't impacted here, but in the law, in the proposed rule, there's a whole section on fine for residential violations. And then, so I would say that 65 dB, I've sort of studied this a lot. 80 and above, 85 and above, that's a generally accepted long exposure, you're gonna have some issues. And like I say, I've obsessed about this stuff for a while. The other thing is, I would say that it seems like there's a very vocal minority, very loud, small vocal minority. And I would ask you to consider the small number of people. I have no doubt that you've got complaints. Noise complaints are part of any community. But it's probably, my guess is a very small number. And as the officer said here, 25 complaints, and that's in all likelihood, 15, 20 people, whatever. You got 35 people in the room here that represent hundreds and hundreds of people who enjoy the venues and so forth. Finally, what I would just suggest is that if, God forbid, this ordinance passes, I think the officer's phone down here is going to ring off the hook because everyone's essentially in violation. And I think that officers have lots of important things to do, and I don't think being a noise nanny is at the top of this. I think we think of them dearly and depend on them for safety. Accidents, traffic, deaths, life-threatening situations. I'm telling you, everyone's going to be in violation. Essentially, day one.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that input. Appreciate it. Ray?
My name is Raymond Hipple. Before I start my remarks, I just wanted to, when you were talking about the number of complaints, and I'm going to speak on the last year and a half of my history with the existing noise ordinance. I don't complain anymore because it gets us absolutely nowhere. We make complaints and nothing happens, and you will understand that when I make my remarks here. I own 2 residential buildings on Main Street, specifically 2755, 2761 Main Street. We've been having issues with noise, specifically blasting bar music coming from the bar across the street. The issue is that there's, and we all know, I don't want to say names, but with the 3 huge garage doors across the front of the building, and when those garage doors are open, it's like the world's largest speaker. We have 14 residential units, just myself, and there's a lot of other residential units on the street, all residential houses on Parkside and back from there. These people all work hard at their jobs all across the community. These residents come home after a hard day's work and they have to listen to this blasting bar music coming from across the street. It's not right, nor is it fair. So, like I said, a year and a half ago, I thought to myself, well, there's got to be a law or ordinance preventing this. So I called the building department and was told there was an ordinance under the Land Use Code, Chapter 200, which you mentioned previous, under general, with a 65 decibel noise limit. And was also informed the building department had a decibel meter for this purpose. I found out after the fact that this was not true and there was no decibel noise limit after I read the actual chapter 200. After we finished the conversation, though, I thought to myself, well, this is a good thing. So time goes by. One night, I call the police. Dispatch sent out an officer. It was Officer Chad. Very nice, met me, said he would go over to talk to them. He comes back over and he says he talked to them and that's all he could do. I thanked him. Of course, as you may guess, nothing changed. So time goes by again. I decided to call the building department again. I asked to speak to the head of the department, of course, that was Mike. So after explaining our situation to Mike, he says, oh, I already know about this issue because I've been fielding calls from neighbors complaining. So he goes on and he explains that he went over to this business several times and told them to keep it down. He basically said he was ignored. So he's throwing his hands up saying there's nothing I can do about it under the current ordinance. Time goes by again. August 19th, I decided to try the police again. I called dispatch. I'm not even directly across from the bar. I'm rather across from the Devlin Hotel, my personal unit. I have a small patio, which I was on at the time. I could not even hear dispatch in my phone. I had to go inside and close the sliding door so I could hear the dispatcher. In any event, they said they would send an officer out. An officer calls me. It was Officer Saul Paul, badge 103. Same scenario. He said he'd go over to talk to them. He calls me back. He says he talked to them and that's all he could do. So basically he was throwing his hands up and saying there's nothing I can do about it. I asked him specifically, so I can put speakers on my front lawn and blast music as loud as I want onto Main Street and across the street. He answered, yes. So basically, currently, we have the building department throwing up their hands and saying there's nothing we can do about it. And we have the police department throwing up their hands saying there's nothing we can do about it either. So again, I'm here representing the little guy. People who work jobs across this community and after a hard day at work have to come home and listen to blasting bar music from across the street. And again, I will say, this is not right, nor is it fair. Keep the doors closed. I have an engineering background, so I see things in black and white. Right now, we have a so-called ordinance on the books, but it's not black and white and it's not enforceable. Tonight, we're looking at a village noise control ordinance, which I have reviewed. I found it to be extremely clear and reasonable. I urge the board to move this forward. Thank you.
Could I ask a question just for clarification?
Sure.
You mentioned the doors being opened or closed made a big difference in noise. Did you ever have a problem when the doors were closed? Or an intolerable situation?
Not intolerable, no, the doors are closed, but there's also speakers on the outside of the building, so I don't know when they're on, when they're not on.
Okay, I just was curious. Thank you. It'll help us.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in? I like to deal with facts. Officer, how many times since Big Z's, we know, Nick as employees and Rob, we know 9:30 in our head, those doors closed. There is no wiggle room. And how many times have you been, I'm not sure if you've been there before.
I haven't,
At
to be honest with
9:30,
you.
that those doors aren't closed.
Does that include, he meant, are there speakers outside? I'm like, once again, this is just for information. Are there?
Speakers.
Are they shut off?
Speakers are turned off by 9:30.
Okay.
That's a biggie in our place, 9:30.
And any complaint that has come to Big Z's and a decibel meter that has been there, it has not been above the allotted number.
I've been with the police on the street. I'm the first one to buy the decibel meter to take the readings. I had a logbook for a year. So.
Is this true?
I
But
brought the
the
officers.
officers that we did go, we started having a decibel meter. Did you find the same readings they did?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm
I
just
don't,
curious.
I can't say, we never compared, right?
No,
Never compared.
we really haven't had to make calls since. I've got you guys go get the decibel reader.
Right.
Since we had that.
What did you find from decibels?
I went out there multiple times. We had, my front desk guy had the reading book.
What did you find for decibels? Like I say, this is all good information
Any
for
car
us.
that drives by is 80 decibels.
What was your noise? Obviously, you said you went out and.
The outdoor speakers, we don't get above 75 in the daytime, and then
Okay.
at 30, we kill everything.
Okay.
Anybody else that has a view that would like to express it?
I think someone over there did our.
Good evening, everyone. Bill Hurley.
A wealth of knowledge, I might add. Thank you.
I agree with 90% of things that have been said here. We're talking about Main Street. What's the definition of Main Street? The busiest street in your community. You bought property on Main Street, you expect noise, you expect activity. Most of you advertise close to everything, walk close to restaurants, close to this, close to that, close to things means noise. I don't disagree with the nighttime, the 9:30, 10 o'clock, pick it out. The daytime stuff, if you have to read a law with all the exceptions, your law is not good. You pick special events, you pick construction, you pick lawnmower. What about the delivery truck? I walked by a reefer truck today, 10:30 in the morning. That was well over 65 decibel. You gonna tell every reefer truck to shut their refrigeration down? You're gonna tell every propane truck that's delivering at 8 o'clock in the morning on Main Street to get out of the traffic, to don't deliver to the restaurants? You need another exception. Well, let's start listing more exceptions. That means your rule isn't very good. I think you're coming up with a solution for the daytime problems that don't exist. You cannot legislate boorish, inconsiderate behavior. You can try all you want. People are still gonna do it. If this is about private rental noise, do something about, you have disturbing the peace laws. You don't need this noise ordinance. It's a way over, you have in here yelling and screaming. Who is? Hooting. Are we a nanny state now? Come on, people, let's start thinking. Think.
Thank you for your opinion. Did you want to speak?
I represent hotels in the area, so the public opinion of the people who are complaining are coming from the hotels. So I'm kind of their voice tonight, but I agree as a community member, as a person who is raising a 15-year-old in this community, and a person who is losing staff because there is nothing to do up here. I understand everything everybody is saying. I think there just has to be a common ground. You guys aren't getting the brunt of the complaints in the morning. My staff is. You aren't getting the online reviews blasting you because of the noise around your hotels. You aren't the ones losing guests. The hotels are. We can't keep the rooms full because the tourists aren't coming back because they're reading the reviews. So there's got to be common ground. We love sending people to live music venues. I live in Saranac Lake. My house is at about 3/4 of a mile away from the water hole. I live in the village. I can hear Party on the Patio every Thursday. I can sit on my deck and hear those bands clear as day. But at 9:30, that music shuts down and I can go to bed. Because I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning running 4 hotels.
What hotels do you represent?
I represent here in Lake Placid, the Haas on Mirror Lake and the Hotel Dublin. So that's in the ones in Saranac Lake, Sarah Placid and the Ashley. So I get everything everybody is saying. As a business owner, we want to bring people here. We want to give them nightlife. At the same time, I'm getting calls from guests. They're the ones that want to call the cops and we're telling them not to. We're taking the brunt of their complaints. So I just kind of want to throw that out there, just common ground. We're all in it for the same reason.
Your complaints at night,
Yes,
not during the day.
the Haas used to get complaints during the day, but not any longer.
But the night.
It was definitely not live music, just other things.
Thank you for speaking. I'm sorry.
We said in the very beginning of the meeting that the nighttime noise alerts isn't changing, that's not up for change, right?
The content is, but the way that it's proposed to be enforced for commercial properties
So it's
is
still-
so that there's more accountability for the management and
But
leadership.
it's still 65 decibels after 9:30.
No, the 65 decibels is the proposal for the day
And what's-
currently, which is in line with the land use code.
So what is it currently at night after 9:30?
So at night, it's.
There's no number.
There's no number, but it's sort of saying, it needs to be quiet, it shouldn't disturb people.
So it is a change then, 65 decibels at night, which wasn't. there.
No,
So there's no change for the night,
For the
it needs to be
The night,
quiet and not
oh, you're calling
disturbing
the night after 9:30.
after 9:30, and then
So
during
you
the
have to be
day,
quieter during the day than you have to be at night.
no, that's.
not getting it.
So at 9:30.
Well, let her answer that first question,
Sorry.
the one you just asked.
Yeah, so during the day, the proposal, again, being consistent with the land use code so that there's not confusion and that there, the parameters that people have to look at when they're building and when there's new construction kind of feed through to the noise ordinance. That was the thinking. And then, and also putting a decibel limit on it during the day, for that sort of persistent noise. And then during the nighttime, it's a little harder to put a figure on it because, 10 o'clock is a little different than 3 a.m, but that the idea and the language that has been working for the community was that more subjective one of, it shouldn't disturb your neighbors. So then I think, so that's the proposal, but one of the challenges, and I think that Ray, you alluded to this, that part of the challenge that the police department had when they were called is that they found it difficult to have any practical enforcement for the nighttime noise ordinance because of the way it was drafted, that it was a criminal offense. And so it would have to effectively result in someone, whoever was at the door first, effectively getting a criminal summons.
Yeah.
And this is an attempt to try to make the owner, manager more accountable so that the person actually in charge of the place.
Now, what about, if the Melwick, gave hundreds of phone calls to you, saying that they don't agree with the noise ordinance being so low at 9 o'clock at night. So if we all called you, would you have to change?
That's what we're
the
here
law
for.
on that? What's
That's
that?
what we're here for.
Yeah.
To get feedback from you. I hope you don't think this is a.
No, I'm just putting it out there. You had 25 calls to the police department saying that there was a loud noise problem, so you wanted to change the whole law and regulation. If you had 125 of us call you and say, we want to have the noise ordinance later. would
All
you-
right, I mentioned and I.
It was 25, I think, Ray, it was 5 of them, according to your own testimony. They're like,
All right, so.
But I'm just wondering, would you take that?
Like I said I wouldn't get interactive, but it would help us on the board to know. Let's not target anybody, but let's say that you've got an organization and you've got a motel next to you in a residential section. That could be anywhere. Do you say that it's fine that your music is so loud that people in their motel rooms can't hear their TV? Or that the people across the street can't sit and enjoy their property? What level would you think, is that okay in your
Well,
opinion?
I think that if we've already broken the barrier of 65 decibels.
Well, but let's
this
forget
year
it,
alone.
because
I
we're
think
here to
that-
discuss that.
I
So
think
at some point, do you
If you're gonna
think,
limit it,
but do you think that's okay that you can blast everything to the next door neighbors and they can't even hear a thing? Is that what you're saying is okay and that we're trying to inhibit?
no, I'm not saying.
Okay, good. So at least we've got some
Like,
common ground.
Though is a fair, or maybe even at most resorts that I've seen.
10
it's
o'clock.
10 o'clock.
usually 10.
That's
You know,
fair.
and when we
Not
travel a
9:30.
lot and we stay in hotels a lot, almost every weekend during hockey season. And when we go, I know that when I'm at Patriot Place or when I'm in Stowe or when I'm in a place that there's live music happening somewhere, I'm one person. And if I want to stay in a really quiet place, I'd say to him, go find a romantic, quiet place with nothing to do. And we will, but we want to be where there are activities and things going on, and at 9:30, if I want to go to bed, I'll go to bed because our noise is gonna be off,
Okay, so
but.
full disclosure, I have nothing to do with Art Devlin's Locomotive anymore. I've sold it. I've been out of there for 3 years now. But I do have a little bit of insight from when I was there, and I'm gonna have to have you back me up. So is it fair that a business has been there since 1953, can have another business move in, and you can't rent a motel room on certain nights because the people just can't even hear their TV? Is that fair?
True though, they can't hear the.
Yes.
We've had
Trust me.
removed people out of
Oh,
the
yeah.
homes, walked them to other
And how many of
hotels.
those same people, not to interrupt you, are saying, hey, we just came out of Big Z's and it's great that we're walking distance, we're right next door. Because I would think there's a balance there. They're staying in a resort town. They're staying in a resort town. They should understand it's a resort town and you're coming here to, let's face it, at nighttime party. People want to hear live
So
music.
just to answer that question, you think it is perfectly fine that someone can't hear their TV in their motel room? Because that's what's happening.
I'm not believing in not hearing your TV. I mean,
Am I
I don't
making it
know
up?
profile of the person, are they deaf to begin with? I don't know.
The address is 2750 Main Street.
Pardon
To
me?
point that out, 2750 Main Street.
You're on Main Street, like.
This isn't Acorn, this isn't Greenwood, this isn't Hillcrest. 2750 Main Street.
So one of the other bits, and I think again, just to kind of share some of the information and feedback that we're getting and that, that we're trying to respond to as well, is that I think people really recognize that, this is a resort community and I think are really tolerant on the whole of, of the events and of music and of different things. And I think some of the, getting to that balance point, I think some of the challenge that people have expressed to us is that, when it becomes, there's something every single night, it makes it, but.
I'd love to have music every
So-
single night this
so
time.
I think that- If I could finish.
What's every?
No.
Sorry.
That is a false.
No.
That's-
We do one or two. bands,
So
month.
just to expand on that, I think that, what we're hearing from people is that, there'll be an event on and then, the next night there's music, the next night there's a neighbor doing something, the next night there's, a dog that keeps barking or whatever, but I think that. It is flag.
That is flag.
But I think that the challenge is that people are finding it to be, different. And, not to say change is something to avoid, but I think that it's impacting on, their ability to, to sleep, their ability to stay in the house that they've been in for decades.
You're just putting the Olympic Village to sleep.
Yeah, it's.
Strange.
pretty sad. I mean, It's just like an episode of Footloose, to be honest. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Can I just say something? We haven't voted on this. This is a public hearing. We're here just to listen. When the public hearing's over, we can opt not to vote. We can and put it back out there. So this isn't a done deal or anything else. So you're all thinking that we're all against it. I've been called hostile and I haven't said a word. I was in the restaurant business for 30 years. I grew up in it. So you're all assuming that we're all sitting there saying this is a done deal. So that's just what I want to say.
That's the
Is
best news I've heard.
No, that's great,
And
but
it's
it is, I think it's clear there are several people on this board that are definitely
But
opposed.
you're
We vote
putting
against.
me- but
we're
you're
voting
putting me,
against-
but you're putting me and everybody in the whole thing, you're saying that we're all.
I'm not doing that, but we know there are
Okay.
some that are definitely for it, right? So the point that I made earlier is there was a research done. I haven't seen, I'd love to see the year plus of
Keep
research.
using that word. I mean, let's face
It's
it.
the old word.
Can I finish?
Sure, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, just because it was in the newspaper doesn't make it gospel.
Can I just finish?
Sure.
But you both mentioned that there's been research done. Where is this research? It seems like it's coming from a few people.
I'll answer
because
that if you
Let me finish. If this represents the dichotomy of this community here, the majority wants to hear live music and wants to be able to go to these events and not have an ordinance that's ridiculous at 65 decibels. There are a couple opposed, but where are all the people that are here to support this change? If
Well, the people being regulated.
they're the people that you represent.
That's the people being regulated are the people that showed up, understandably, because they have a very personal interest in this. And, it's like Purdue showing up to defend Salmonella. Maybe that's not.
I'm just a member of the
Excuse me,
community.
can I comment to that, please? I'm a resident, I don't own a business, I don't have anything to do with anything. I like live music and I like a vibrant community. And I do sing in a band, so I do have an interest there. 20 years ago or so, when I started in that band, there was no live music, it had died off in this town. And it was sad, and it was quiet here, noticeable. And I credit Jill and Frank, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself the first time, Val Rogers live here in Lake Placid full-time and have for many years. I credit Jill and Frank with reviving live music. They started doing a band on their Burger Brews, the band, on Saturday nights in the evening, and it was really nice, and it revitalized and sparked the live music scene in Lake Placid. But it was noticeable when it wasn't here. Dancing Bears used to have music every weekend, and that went away. Whether it was inside or out, it was gone, and it was quiet and noticeable. And then when it came back slowly. But it's really nice to have it back, and like I said earlier, it's a really important part of a vibrant community. And yes, there are issues on both sides, and we need to find a balance. But I can remember clearly when it was non-existent here, and I don't think that's something we want to go back to.
Can I just jump on this? Let me just jump on this real quick and pass it off, and I'll be quiet. Getting back to the Devlin Hotel. It's the owner's a great guy. He comes over to our establishment often. We just ordered sound barriers to try to alleviate that noise to help Devlin. So it's just not one way. We try to understand their concerns, so we're gonna be putting those up to try to help that noise.
Yeah, I think that that's a really great solution as well, because I think that, you know, there are good technological solutions, you know, to a lot of this. You know, I mean, I used to live in a very big city that's a lot, you know, and it was amazing the creative solutions that, you know, places came up with, you know, to have that balance between, you know, great music scene and a really vibrant area and space, but then also, you know, not disturbing residents.
You have bands, and I apologize for saying I was done. Westchester County residents, people from Connecticut, for all these rugbies and fishing on a pond, lake on a pond, and they're getting kind of, oh, we gotta close the doors at 9:30. We get a lot of negative feedback from tourists.
One quick thing about research, the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health and the World Health Organization set 85 dB as a threshold where prolonged exposure may lead to noise-induced hearing loss, which is roughly what I said earlier. It's kind of 80 and above. Quote, there is no conclusive research indicating that exposure to 65 dB causes hearing loss. So that's my research. I'm good at researching.
The 70 came from the EPA.
Well, they should talk to the World Health Organization.
The typical outdoor council is 80 to 100. So how do you come up with 65? I guess is.
I mean, that is the
Land
research.
use code.
Chris Erickson, I know most of you, I own the pub in Lakeside and River Trail over in Saranac Lake. I thought this law was kind of bananas, and this meeting has not assuaged my concern with it at all. I think that I feel really bad for Big Z's, who clearly are the target of at least the majority of this. They came in and invested a lot of money. They built their business plan around a certain paradigm, and now all of a sudden the goalposts are being moved rather than trying to more proactively figure out what's going on. The idea that there can't be any noise during the day is it's bananas to me in a resort community that this is happening. And for me, who has over 100 employees here, we have almost 200 employees now between the three businesses. Like, we've made an investment. The Ericksons have made an investment. We have a couple of our employees here who are members of this community because of our businesses. And I know that Big Z's and Jason at Smoke Signals, like, we employ a lot of people in this town. We have invested a lot of money in this town with a certain business plan. And this is really moving the goalposts, especially on those venues that have live music all the time. So I always take it to extreme sometimes. I'm like, well, what's the next thing that all of a sudden is gonna come across someone's desk? Is all of a sudden it's gonna be like, okay, we're gonna go to Utah and have 3-2 beer because someone thinks that this is an issue. Someone thinks there shouldn't be traffic around Mirror Lake Drive. And I know those are stupid examples, but this is right in that category to me, is that we have to have a 65 decibel daytime 24-hour noise ordinance. So that being said, other concerns, two of them is now we've got a 65 decibel meter reading, which I guarantee I'm talking louder than now during the day. But all of a sudden, when there actually is the time of day that there's problems, there's no number, right? So now chief has to come and he goes to the pub because we have a band or our speakers are on, and he has to make a subjective call or give Chris Erickson a $500 fine. The next night, maybe it's Chad who goes to there, and maybe he doesn't think it's this loud. So this law is even worse than I thought that it was, because now we're bringing subjective things into the time when we actually arguably have very, very little problem. But maybe the problem at all. Yeah,
Just a point of clarification that the proposal around the nighttime hasn't changed in terms of the.
Right, but you're changing parts of this law that are affecting the nighttime, but you're not actually quantifying what the noise is, but you're quantifying it during the day at a number that is absurdly low. So now you're putting the police force in a really awkward spot of having to make subjective calls on the night thing. And then the other thing that I just wanted to say is I think we're solving a problem that we don't really have. And I think that's like, I'm not saying that there's not people who complain. I had a neighbor behind me who complained about the noise coming out of the pub. She said when at night her dishes rattled in her cabinets because of the hood fan, our kitchen fan. And Jim Morganson, who was the code enforcement, had a decibel reader, or he had one on his phone. We went into her kitchen and there was nothing. So I'm not saying that the person across from Big Z's or the person on Main Street or something doesn't have valid noise complaints. But if we've had 25 noise complaints and one of them was from the person who lived behind the pub with the plate shaking that had no noise whatsoever, then we probably have had less than 25 real complaints, right? So in general, I just think that, you know, I look at the language of the variance of this bill. I look at the definition of a municipality sponsored event and for the good of the community and all this kind of stuff and how vague and wishy-washy. And Big Slide is next to a lawyer who I don't get along with particularly well. But he, like, because of that, I've gotten a little bit in tune with the law, and I can't believe that a lawyer would look at this agreement, look at this law, and think that this is copacetic. I just have a hard time believing that. So I really think that the daytime law is ridiculous. There's clearly conflict of interest with at least some of the people sitting up here at this table. It's solving a problem that doesn't exist, and you're putting the police in a really bad spot.
So it's an interesting question about the changing the goalposts, because I guess, you know, part of the thinking that we had was that, again, just tying it back to the land use code, because that's what exists for everybody when, you know, when they initiate any project. So I was just curious about, you know, that, you know, I think that element of it really, and I know that I think that that's why smoke signals, one of the reasons why, you know, they took the approach that they took.
But I'm guessing when Big Z's went in front of the planning board, there was some discussion about the doors being open and when the doors need to be shut and that they were going to be.
I can speak to that. I was on the board at the time that Big Z's, and fortunately, it was during COVID. So as the plan, and Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you were involved or not, but as the plan was put forth to the review board, the whole idea of these garage doors being open was to allow fresh air. This was just coming out of COVID, so of course, everybody sat there and was like, oh, wow, great idea. Little did we know that, you know, the garage doors going open was going to obviously create an issue, but it, you know, it's something we have to deal with and something we have to find balance. So, I mean, it was presented to the review board and, you know, it came from a whole different aspect that we're not dealing with now.
And I appreciate that, Jackie, but I also have to believe that the folks like yourself who are sitting on that board saw 3 big garage doors that were gonna be open and didn't ever think, well, maybe there's a little bit of noise that's gonna come out of there either. But
That definitely, it didn't
So,
cross our mind.
Now you're proving the point a little bit of now the goalposts have moved. The goalposts moved from fresh air to now quiet to now this. And they made a big investment in it, so.
I mean, I can have the cops call if people are playing cornhole now. If I'm like my neighbor and they're playing cornhole in the backyard, if you heard a bag slap a piece of wood over and over again for an hour and a half, I can get pissed off and call the police.
How about pickleball?
Pickleball.
And I can share a little data that, just to shed some perspective.
Sure.
What's happening right now with tourism, so compared to last year, and I'm sure some of the businesses here can attest to this, but so April was very soft, obviously, compared to last year with the eclipse. May, businesses are down 30% plus. A lot of that has to do with the weather, which obviously we can't control. And the beginning of June, it started out soft, it's starting to build up. But that leaves the businesses with the crunch of June, the end of June, July, August, September, October, and then we go down. So just keeping that in mind, who knows what the summer holds with weather, with things that are going on in the world, with the economy. Maybe it's a pause and let's revisit this. I mean, from our perspective, let's not do anything that's gonna hurt a business coming out of a quiet spring. And
You're so right, not to jump in here, but I'm at the forefront, I'm at the beginning stages of where Big Z's was during COVID. Having just purchased, as I mentioned earlier, the Austrian Welcome Center, town icon building. And again, coming from a music background, being in this town in the 70s, when music was thriving, to develop that building into a beautiful music center. We talked about triple glazed glass. Well, guess what? That doesn't contain bleed 100%. It just doesn't. But I think the big topic, it really should be, what are we doing to attract new business? Sitting here for the past couple hours, I'm relatively discouraged about putting a stake in the ground and developing an arts center over there at the Austrian Welcome Center. And literally, I'm deflated after sitting here, but I'm thinking that if Lake Placid is thriving economically 9-10 months out of the year, sure, pass any law you want. But if you were trying to attract new business, new families, new people coming in, more tourism, you're not doing it with this. You are discouraging it. I'm very much discouraged about my plans at the Welcome Center, Austrian Welcome Center. So, I'd like to hear some more positive conversation about how we're going to grow things here and how we're going to thrive, how we're going to bring in young families. That should be the topic, not how do we, squeeze life out of everyone here. So, but yeah, I've really, after sitting here, I'm really rethinking my strategy on what to do over here. And I'm thinking more culture, more music. Let's bring in some legacy acts and really put Lake Placid even more on the map musically and culturally. But it's not where this conversation is going today. I'm really sorry to hear it.
And once again, from public feedback, and I honestly do want it. But what's your answer? I mean, like I say, we as the village board can't just listen to businesses. We also have to listen to the people that live here. What's your answer to that? I mean, I can name people, you picked on Katie already. Family's had a house there for 70 years.
That's
Back
really
when I was
nice.
young, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
We've all been here a long time.
but I'm just saying, so now all of a sudden at your house, if I decide to buy the house next door and put in a business and a band, I can just keep you up and say it's for culture. I mean, we have to balance this. I mean,
I'd like to answer your question.
I was speaking, but let me just finish. Do you really want businesses like hotels and motels that now can't rent rooms? Do you really want people that rent apartments? You're smirking and laughing at this, but
because I'm thinking back.
tell me if I'm right or wrong on this, Ray. Are you gonna be able to keep your tenants if they're allowed to just keep blasting music over there? Are they gonna move somewhere And if he checks out, I can tell you what's gonna go in there. They're gonna become vacation rentals.
and we're fighting very hard to keep people here that live here.
Okay, then you need to make a decision on
We
where
do,
you
don't
wanna
we? And that's
lead.
what we're here for tonight. But if you think it's all gonna be one-sided, that that's all we're gonna do,
Not-
no,
nobody's
it's
saying
not.
that, Art.
But realize we have to balance this.
I understand.
What you're talking about is not a balance though, Art, and
Well, how do you
quite
know it
honestly,
isn't?
there is something stopping
You
you
gotta have a
putting an
starting.
establishment next to my house up on Patch Lane. There's zoning. We're talking about Main Street.
Yeah.
And as Bill pointed out earlier, the most vibrant part of a community is Main Street. If there's people that rent apartments or have houses on Main Street, that's part of it. That's what you're buying into when you come here, in my opinion.
The other thing, Mayor, is that 3 times now you said something like you don't want them to go to bed. Right? But am I the only one that heard that, like, or go to sleep, or like, we're not talking about 9:30, we're talking about 2 in the afternoon. We're talking about a wedding, and if someone wants to sleep at 2 in the afternoon and Big Z's has their stereo on, then that's on the person who's trying to take a nap at 2 in the afternoon. You keep
On
talking-
Main Street.
You keep talking about people sleeping. I would love the noise ordinance to be way past 9:30, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a daytime conversation level noise ordinance. That's not anyone sleeping.
And just to say, I think when we have, been out with the noise meter in terms of, that level, and outside that level, dissipates a lot. So I think, and we've talked about this before, that inside, we're probably at this point, but as soon as you get outside, and, I think we've walked past, kind of your deck at the pub, and it's underneath that level, with the kind of normal stereo and conversation and that kind of thing. So, I think, just to say that is, part of, I guess, the homework that we.
Because
did as
everybody
part of
having
that.
fun is
I
heading
don't think
down.
we did any homework.
No,
You're using
after-
65 decibels, there's no homework done.
It's based on,
Arbitrary and something you came up with
It's-
because you're across the street.
it's linked to the land use code.
Okay.
So, I
There's
mean.
no scientific data behind 65 decibels.
If I could
So
say,
they
a lot of
change the
people are
vehicles.
attacking poor Katie, and let's face it, we don't get paid enough to do this job, trust me. She didn't come up with this idea, people came to her, and that's what our job is, so don't persecute her, that she picked up the ball and ran with this. Somebody had to, and you can roll your eyes all you want to, but someone had to. Chris, you mentioned it, okay, someone next door to you decides they're gonna blast music back at you, you okay with that? It's legal, it's perfectly legal right now, and it's their right, is that okay with you?
Isn't there a public nuisance that I could
Not
call and say
during the
this is
day.
a public
No,
nuisance?
There's
Not
not,
live music.
You-
Live music isn't
Chuck,
public nuisance.
right or wrong, can I go next door to him, buy a house, put a stereo in the window and blast it at 10, noon to 5, legal?
There's no local ordinance that.
Nothing to stop me, is there?
There's-
Trying to,
Is that a problem in town?
is it gonna be a problem for you if I do that? But you're the ones all saying.
That'd be a problem if you took a water gun and shot it at my business all day too, but that's.
But I
like,
get it, but I'm just
That's
saying.
the same thing, it's
This is where
hypothetical.
we're trying to balance, don't think we're just not listening to you, but you got someone sitting right behind that's just told you he's having a hard time with his tenants.
And I
And
respect
you've got
that.
people that are living on Parkside that are having the same problem, we have to find a balance.
And
And if it isn't,
the balance should be that there should be a noise ordinance at night, and it should be, I mean, I don't personally
when
think
you say at
9:30
night,
is fair.
let's keep going, because we really want this feedback. I'm gonna pick on the Devlin, unfortunately for her, a motel. It's not
We're
the Devlin.
between 2 hotels.
I'm just saying, but do you really want it so that someone can't listen to a TV in their motel room?
No, of course not.
Okay, so that's the balance.
Our hotels are
At
next.
what time?
So
That's
that's
the time for us.
The question.
Like
I
they
agree.
said, come over if there's gonna be music or. go
3 in the
back to
afternoon.
pub.
If you really wanna walk into your room, you wanna turn on the TV, you can't hear it? It's true.
But it's actually not. So I have spoken to Steve at length.
Yeah.
And
Well,
he
I
has
shouldn't pick any
never.
person, but
Sure,
I'm
but you
just saying,
did, but you
I
did,
did,
so.
you're right.
So while we're on that topic, we have never had a complaint during the day. And frankly, he has said the 9:30 is absurd. So, right, we talk about balance, but there has to be an exception, right? Like we are on Main Street. I have raised my family in New York City. I've been there 30 years. I have 14-year-old twins who are incredibly well-adjusted. There are no hearing issues whatsoever. They are the most culturally well-versed individuals, that many of these people have met. I do not understand why we are even talking about something like this during the day. You have an incredibly interesting Olympic town, right? We have been coming for years and years and years. We had couples coming with us for years and years and years who will never come back. And that is because it's dying. And they want this town to be revitalized. And then there are things like this. that
Tell
are
us why
being
we're dying. You
proposed.
threw that out. I'd love to hear.
Sure, well, because you've got.
Empty stores on Main
empty
Street.
But that's,
Main
because-
Street.
but we're
You've
dying
got-
because of,
You are, the town is becoming quiet, right? You know, it's not all
we didn't
about
even have a
iron.
noise ordinance, but that's our problem, but that's what it's called.
It's a void right now, right? Like, you know, it's about Iron Man and it's about these municipal events, which frankly, who gives a shit? Excuse my language, right? You are okay with us hearing, we are Iron Man till 1 o'clock in the morning. But it's not okay to support, you know, local musicians and live music. That is unfair. The way that the proposal is written, and we did consult an attorney, it is unconstitutional. It's an abuse of power. And it's an abuse of the statute of what sound ordinance and noise is. It is just unfair and frankly, ridiculous at this point. And, you know, it's targeted to a few said businesses, and that is not how a small town should run and work. It's just not. There is no balance. We're not talking about balance. And, you know, for a new resident here, it's really sad, very, very sad that this is a conversation that's even having to happen. It is.
Thank you.
Art, one thing, in your example, first of all, I agree with you. The answer is, if someone's in a hotel and they turn their TV on, they should be able to hear it and not be drowned out by something, you know, a block, obviously. That said, that can't happen at 65 TV. There's no way, that means that the person watching the TV can hear a conversation a block away or across the street, and there's simply no way to do it. In that example, my guess is the dB level that you're referring to, it would have to be 90, 85, 100, I don't know, but it's not 65. And so possibly, I think the 65 is way off. And but there is a level upon which I don't think anybody wants, you know, your person in the hotel. And it's not 65. And I would encourage you guys to take a hard look at that, to maybe use the OSHA, the World Health Organization, stuff like that, and start talking more about 85. And I think, you know, potentially that could be.
Is there a new business council here? Is there a body, a government body that just focuses on new business development for the village, for the town? You know,
Yeah, so part of our organization has an economic development director. So, yes.
yeah, and what's the thought? I mean, generally speaking, because I go back to my point 20 minutes ago, we need to be attracting new families, new business and jobs and creating an economy that really thrives here. We are the Olympic Village. It's amazing how many people lose sight of that.
So-
And we're an internationally recognized community and we are going. So
Well, so I will say that, you know, we're working to address obviously some of the core issues as far as the economic development, which we know is housing and daycare, right? So we can build another business and hope people, you know, come to work, but we need the people and so we need the housing, right? So it goes on. And yes, you know, as far as tourism, like I spoke to earlier, it's over 80% of our economy. So I think that you hit it on the head when you said, you know, you have to look at the decimals, you kind of just have to. I mean, I think everybody's made their point and it's been heard, and I think that there were really good points made. We know the challenges that are in front of our community, and they're the same challenges that are in front of many communities across the country right now, especially, you know, travel, tourism destinations. So, you know, in closing, I think you've all made your point, right? We can't jeopardize the livelihood of the businesses that are the backbones of our communities as well as our, our economy, which is tourism. So, and in regards to the other issues, as far as population, that goes back to the housing and the daycare and a lot of the other things. And yeah, we do need a vibrant, fun, young, interesting place to live and people to live here. 100%, no doubt. And I don't think anybody in this room disagrees.
And we need to make smart decisions.
We're
a livable community.
And David, I think to your point, I think that we recognize that, that that there's multifaceted reasons why people choose somewhere to live. And I think, as MJ said, I think, we've been hard at work working with, lots of local stakeholders in the town to work on getting the daycare open for next September. We know that there are some families and young people who have chosen to stay in town, because they see that light and that opportunity. We're also working really hard on, trail connectivity, so that there's like increased bikeability. And, so I think that to your point, this is, what we're trying to do is to think about that balance between things that make a community really livable and attractive. And so I think we're, as Art said, we're not sort of, doing this for any other reason than we think it's helpful and trying to find the right way through. And, I've been to Big Z's to watch your band play, so it's not that we're opposed to music, but I think we're also trying to listen to some of the challenges and the concerns that people have brought to us, some of which have come through the PD and some of which have not, they've come direct.
It does seem a little ironic that there's only been 2 people who have been speaking in favor of this, and
It's very hard for people to come to speak, trust me.
Can I just ask how many people have talked to you personally about this down the line? Just out of curiosity, like how many people have actually called you, complained? Rough estimate.
7 or 8 that talk to me from other things, but like I say, it's very hard for.
I'm curious of total, like we got the police numbers, which were crazy low, so like we have thousands of people calling you, Katie, saying this has got to stop.
No, I've had 5.
And out of curiosity, of those
We keep
numbers-
going, we keep going, I just want to hear the total.
Yeah, I've had about 10 of them.
So 22, Mark,
Nobody.
0, 22, 24. We're under 50 between the police and this board, and we're still sitting here after 2 hours trying to convince you.
And out of curiosity, of those numbers, how many people complain before 9:30?
But just so we know, we were here just to listen.
Nobody's trying to convince us of anything. We're here to listen to another group.
This is just a public hearing. After we close this public hearing, we will go to the board meeting. When we go to the board meeting, we can decide if we're gonna table this or if we're gonna vote. So right now, we have to close this to go to our board meeting. So our board meeting starts at 5. So we've been here listening to this. So next, once everybody's done speaking, we will go to a board meeting to our agenda. And when it comes up, we can decide, will we vote or will we table?
Please consider that when you have your board meeting after this, that we are all, a lot of us, I know that there are a few here that don't believe in what we're saying. But we are important members of your community. We are passionate about what we do. We don't want anyone here to leave this and think that they were attacked or roll their eyes or think, God, they didn't have any idea what this meeting was supposed to be about or how it was supposed to go in the end. We're just here trying to protect our livelihood for our families, for our friends. I'm super proud of this group, that we all are seeing each other as not people to rival against and competitors, but as restaurant and bar owners in our community, that we're supportive of each other. And I would hope that everyone would go out and support live music if this gets nixed, because that's what we should be doing, is we should be going out in our community and supporting each other and not having to waste 2 hours on a noise ordinance potentially that could destroy our livelihood.
And I will say that one other reason I would say to ask you to table this is it seems that we have live music and then the entire rest of this is general noise.
I don't think you have to worry about tabling. I think, like I said in the beginning, and I realized many people didn't realize what I was saying, but I've been on the board 16 years now, and every public hearing we put out, but two, nobody shows up, nobody cares. And the only 2 times that people did show up, the last time we had a problem was clothing on Main Street. 4 people showed up and talked to us about it, and we tabled it, and we're going to change our minds. It just takes people like yourselves coming in.
Okay, well, thank you very much for listening.
But
So can you tell us what the scenario is, Mayor? Sorry.
Oh, I just wanted to say, not one person on the board or anybody's come to us to find out what noise changes we're doing at Big Z's, since we know this is mainly about my garage doors and everything else. Not one person's come to find out that we're putting up, what is it called, Jackie? Wallpaper stuff that
we've got the
dampens all the bass specifically,
soundboard, they've got the.
sound reduction boards in the ceilings. Nothing. Not one.
That's
And
also-
my other question is, do we know the percentage of this town that actually lives on the Main Street corridor?
I don't have that
That's a
data.
pretty good number, because probably what, 2%, 3%. That we're effectively making this massive change throughout the entire village of Lake Placid. For just one.
like I said, our total intent here is to satisfy both sides. That's our job as village board members. I'm very happy to listen to people. I'm very happy to hear your changes. And I'm very happy to go across the street or go next and just see how you're affecting them. Because like I say, I don't believe that your intention when you have a band, you think you're right is that someone can't listen to a TV or can't sit in their living room and watch TV, do you?
No, I mean, but we only do it at night, so like this daytime thing.
But well, even at 7 or 8 at night when they come
One
home.
time we've ever had a band during the day, it was St. Patty's Day, the door's shut.
We can overtime this all the time, we don't have to live music.
5:30 until 9:30 or 10, and that could be louder because people like bands, they like music, but just that segment could be louder, otherwise quieter. Because I do live in town, not far from a lot of establishments, but I've been a performer for 30 years and, you know, like the art center and the scenes and, but just, you know, I love the music in the park. That's great. It's probably loud at times, but it's rather short. And so compromise.
And if I could just mention one other point, you mentioned the band shell and trying to go there. A lot of the reason we limit people to the band shell is it's not safe on Main Street to attract 8,000 people or 6,000 or 4,000. And that's why we try to direct them to different venues. A few times the chief has come to me and said, you know, if there's a problem here, I can't control it. And that's the reason the band shell, I mean, we've had other groups that want it too. It's a small area that, you know, parking really, and
I think my point that I made is really, people who live locally here, you know, me included. I think we're kind of a known quantity. And I just think, you know, you're using the band shell, what, 12, 13, 14 nights a year, if that. I think you just need to be, with all due respect, I just think you need to be a little bit more open-minded about that. I mean, this is a whole separate conversation, I think, but that particular facility is completely underutilized and I think really could enhance the vibrancy of this town. I'd love to get involved about how to, you know,
depending on the numbers that you bring there. I mean, that's the
Right.
reason the
But I don't
lacrosse,
think you'd really.
that's why the
3,000.
lacrosse was turned away. Really a better venue would have been at the school.
But I don't think you'd really attract 3,000, 4,000 people. I think that's kind of.
No, the largest crowd ever at the band shell for Songs of Mirror Lakes, 1,300, maybe 1,500 people. So 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, way up.
Pardon my ignorance.
And I also own an apartment building across the street from Big Z's, never had a complaint, and I support everything that's happened here as far as live music. And I think that the laws are absurd. My voice is 80 on a typical conversation. So 65 is.
I wish I
way
had your
absurd.
voice.
Yeah, I kind of go with something that David said, I kind of like that it would be okay if you had some events at the band shell that were 1,200 people and they crowded into the street because it's downtown.
But keep in mind too, and I'll throw one thing at you, when you say crowded into the street, we don't own Main Street. A lot of times we'd like to close it down and have a block party or make it one way so you can have bike lanes and people. It's a state highway. We can't control that, but I'll just throw that out, so you. Knowledge is power.
I have a block party, Mayor.
But if that's what the people want, you say, you know, it's occasional, it can't be every night.
really, as a sidebar topic, and I think it is a sidebar topic, but I did want to throw it into my mix. But I think that's something that really should be looked at, because I think that could really, as I said, help the vibrancy of town and do it in a controlled way. Bring more music, to the park, and that's my point. I practically live here year round now. It's underutilized, and I think it could be put to really good use, and put some people on it. I'd love to be involved and help out.
Okay, we'll keep you in mind, and we'll look into that. And we'll bring you in for your opinion, and we'll see what we can do.
Right.
But like I say, I think we do have to balance that with the amount of parking, the amount of safety.
There are a lot of concerns which I listened to last year at this, at the meeting, but I appreciate all of that, but I think there are ways to get there, and we'll all work together.
And I think Mary Jane, I think she said it best. We've hit almost all the topics. Is there anyone that hasn't spoken that has something different than what's been said?
I've spoken, but I've got 3 things I'd like to question. Chief, you said there isn't a local disturbing the peace ordinance?
No, not for daytime noise, no.
Okay, but there is one for nighttime?
Yes, correct.
Okay, is there New York state law that you can enforce for daytime disturbing the peace?
Disorderly conduct can fit in certain circumstances, but it doesn't specifically address noise.
Okay, no, but instead of a noise ordinance, there is a disturbing the peace law that this board could develop and put in.
Provided somebody makes a complaint. That's our biggest problem.
You can't do anything, you can't make a law unless you have a complaint?
No.
What?
No.
You changed the land use code all the time.
Give me a second to answer your question.
I don't understand the question.
Create a law, if there hasn't been a complaint filed. A local law.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So we could set a limit that people just can't do, but no one's complaining, but we have to enforce is what you're asking me to do.
Well, no, most communities have a disturbing the peace law. If we don't have one, that could take away a lot of these, except, street takeovers, spinning your tires, where'd you go, California to get that one? I didn't even, this isn't a problem here. But, okay, so now I have 2.
Well, a lot of things weren't a problem until they are.
Okay, but that's disturbing the peace. Okay, get them for a traffic violation. You can get them for many more things than noise. And criminally, not civilly. Under your proposal, which I am totally against the daytime part of it, the nighttime. It says unless the event is granted for permission or has been authorized by the town or village. Is a conditional use permit that was granted to these establishments, is that authorization from the village?
Give me an example, I don't follow you.
He has a conditional use permit to run an establishment that has live music. That's the village giving him permission.
Well, I assume when you do that, you assume it's going to be indoor and not spill into the neighbors.
That, you can't make assumptions, Art. You either gave
You're
him a permit or you didn't.
You're the pro, I didn't give him one.
I'm asking a legal question for your lawyer. Is that permission from the village that, so you're saying that you have to have permission to do some of this? I'm asking a legal question. I'm not a lawyer.
I'm not either.
But someone wrote this thing and that's gonna be, some lawyer's gonna bring that to you, saying, wait a minute, they were granted. The second technical one, in your variance, it says the applicant has to do 45 days and then all the other conditions. There's no deadline for you to respond. You could respond the day before the event saying, yes, you can have it, or no, you can't.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the event's canceled because we didn't know if we had a permit, so you've got to be put in there. You have to reply by a certain date. I mean, you can't, I don't think it's logical that granting variances is gonna be done, but anybody could say, well, why am I gonna apply? They could wait till 30 to 44 days and I'm screwed. So
okay,
that needs to be a technical change.
Good feedback. Thank you. Like I said, you're a wealth of knowledge. And I appreciate all the years that you've sat on the zoning
That
board.
doesn't have anything to do.
It sure does. You've listened to a lot, you've learned a lot. And like I say, we appreciate your input.
The lawyers are gonna get hefty on that.
Okay, like I said, you gotta have a starting point. You've got to react to the people that may come to you. Like I say, is there anyone that has any input that hasn't already been brought out? Like I say, I can guarantee you that this is not going to be talked or voted on tonight. We will take input, from people. We'll go back to the drawing board.
Martin, I've spoken quite a bit, but this is personal. Is that I've noticed there's a need up here for doggy like daycare. For like tourists, instead of finding a place back home, they could bring the dog to here. Both my wife and I are retired. But I come up here quite often. I'm not from the area, but I work at Big Z's quite often. But she doesn't want to come up here. There's nothing to do in the winter up here, because she doesn't ski and bobsled. And she doesn't want to come up. There's just nothing to do. That's a Lake Placid. I know, it's a blanket statement, so.
Lake Placid's not for everybody. I understand that.
So we shouldn't be trying to limit the people coming to it. We should be-
But by the same token,
we should just go after everything. Culture should be part of Lake Placid, not only nature, not only sports.
But I do
We have the largest cultural thing in the Adirondacks at the Arts Center.
You're making it sound like we're all against culture, we're all against. We're not. Well, let me finish.
Consider it. That's all we're asking.
All I'm saying is that there's a two-edged sword, because there's the people that have apartment buildings, there's people that have motels. We should all learn to live together. It shouldn't be one-sided.
We should learn to live together, and just one more thing for me, and then I promise I'm not talking anymore.
Because this is
But-
new and different.
And it is different. So I understand the hotel, and she said she's representing hotels. I know there were two that she's representing. I was in communication today with Ann Riley, from High Peaks Resort. And she has a bunch of VIPs coming in July, and she's looking for live music and where can they go? And they specifically requested this from her, so she reached out to me. And I was looking and I couldn't really find any specific things on that, but that other side is there are some major hotels in the area that are looking to help market and promote live music and get people into these venues and that type of thing. So it goes both ways on both sides. There are hotels that are really like, where's the live music? Grand Adirondack on Main Street, they really want to do things up on their deck this summer. Orta wants to do something at Romer's. You know, there are major institutions that aren't represented here that are looking to do things that this.
Okay, thank you.
Call me and I'll give you some gift cards. We're free, no cover charge.
Art, can you talk me through what happens now?
Going forward?
Yeah, like
As I said-
there's
as
a
I-
table, there's this,
as I
like, what does
said-
that mean?
We have an agenda, and we can someone has to first, someone has to second something for it to be voted on, and then we vote. Or someone can vote to table it, we first and second that. Like I said, we get very few people that really care about anything we do here. I hate to say it, and if you want to come to our board meetings, most nights there's nobody here except the village or the newspaper.
So I guess what you're at, we'll vote to table.
I can
We'll go back
guarantee
to
you
the
that's going to
drawing
happen.
board and take this all into consideration and come up with something else.
And there'll be another public hearing.
Right.
Yeah, there would need to be another.
Definitely, I mean, we're not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes, we're just trying to be fair.
No, I
Like
just don't
said-
know, I just want to know what the procedure is going forward, because we obviously all have some,
You mentioned earlier about, not that one thing about a public vote, but why would this be not eligible for a public vote versus smoking
I would,
cannabis?
you know, to be honest with you, there are things that I have to do as mayor and I have to decide just like that. And I don't even consult my board. I have the power to do that. Most times, and whenever I can, I consult the board on things I shouldn't. I don't even have to. I'm not the type to want to push anything on anybody. But I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, New York state law will allow you to have a public referendum, which we did on the cannabis. Because I didn't believe that was something we should decide as five of us. I thought the community should. And the community spoke. And if it's allowed for this, I'm thrilled to get it off my plate, because trust me, this isn't something that I want to be in the middle of. I'm here because I understand both sides.
We can call and find out.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Just please.
It's amazing the things we can do. It really is. I mean, there's lots of things. I mean, if you're living in Lake Placid, I would love to have a homestead act. Because it's hard to live here, and I would love these people to have a reduction in their salary. Because if you have a second home, you're coming here, this will crucify me, but you can afford it if you've got two homes. And if you're running a business, it's not really called a business, you can afford more, but it's hard to live here. And that's one of the reasons that we did the vacation rental, that we allow people that live in the building and will be there while it's rented to do it anywhere, just to try to help people to live here. But there's so many times that we come up with great ideas and we just legally can't do it. We try. A lot of people get on the board thinking, oh, these dumb idiots, and then they get in and say, well, why do you do that? New York state law, New York state law, New York state law, you can't do that. We try. We really do. It's not easy.
Did you try putting air conditioning on tonight?
Don't have it.
Yeah, open the windows.
Okay, like I say, okay, thank everyone for coming. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll make the motion in the public hearing.
Second.
Just so it's clear.
I'll do that.
We didn't make a motion, I open. So the public hearing is closed.
Hey.
It is very hard. So we will close.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hear a motion. Appreciate it. Actually, I'm listening and. Thank you for your service. Too.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, thank you very much, Eric.
We need a motion.
Anything I can do to help? Yep. Here.
There we go.
I don't believe all I have to do is say it's.
Okay.
Either way, so, I mean, every night we don't do that.
Yeah.
So, okay, the
Okay.
public. Our village board meeting has been done, the public hearing.
Yes.
Local law number 2.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't think so.
No.
I mean, all we do is switch on top
No,
of
there's
the.
no switch anymore.
Oh, it's gone?
Okay,
That's my boy.
Okay.
okay.
So,
Do we need to get back to you in the morning?
yes, 3 clicks clockwise.
You need it back to get in?
I know.
No.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to table proposed local law number 2 for the year 2025.
Could I please be on record as second?
All in favor?
Or do you want to be first?
I want to be first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All in
Okay.
favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Regular board meeting minute, you have a second.
I make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item C is personal electric vehicle regulations. Had our public hearing, tonight's the night to vote on that. And remember, it is not a law, it is just a recommendation.
It is just a recommendation and the only change was the fact that I made an exception to electric mobility scooters so that it wasn't part of that law.
Right.
Just making it, yes,
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very much. Item D is the TCC's decision, and as all of you know from Kimball. Does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make, okay, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
E is electric inventory clerk hire.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item F, highway hire number 1.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Highway hire number 2.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
H is laboratory course.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is great, we do this more often. Chemical safety,
Make a motion.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and data bike riding event.
Oh, hell, I'll make a motion.
Oh. All you have to do is keep reading it for 2 hours.
Yeah. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't care.
Village board board sessions.
Love the schedule. I'll make the motion.
Second.
This says 2023.
It's
Yeah.
I think that's my 23.
Been a long week.
Yeah.
We'll change that.
Monday.
Okay.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
And meeting schedules,
Make a motion.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And then we have one that is not on here. It is for the police department to hire Anthony Picarillo. As administrative assistant after. Do I need to explain anything? Anyone have any questions? We have the horse here, so it's.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Very excited to bring it up.
I'll make the motion.
All in
So is
favor?
Mindy.
Aye.
Mindy, is there anything more to come from the clerks?
Nope.
Okay. And treasury item warrant affidavit number
I'll
22.
make a motion.
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
And funding request for 4th of July parade. Does everyone get that?
Is that my $500?
Yes.
Oh,
We have to have a motion.
okay. So I don't know if it's gonna happen. Everybody wants a band. So I asked the school if they want a band for the 4th of July parade. So. Okay.
Well, my daughter was told she had to be there, so I hope.
No, we don't have a band.
Oh,
Oh,
But we may have the elementary school, and I'm like, you mean the elementary school is gonna sing songs and not get their $5 from being on bikes? Oh, we didn't think of
Yeah.
that. So it's on hold.
Yeah, the elementary kids
Could
are.
I have approval to spend $500
Yes.
in case? Thank you.
Well, make your motion.
I'd like
So
to
moved.
make a motion, if the opportunity arrives for music from the school,
Put
what
the
it,
budget.
to put in the budget.
So moved.
Okay,
I second.
thank you.
Aye.
All in favor? Okay, Mindy, presentation of budget. I
Yeah,
think everyone cared.
yeah. I sent out a
Yeah.
copy to everybody, and it will be up on the website. And
Thank you for the clarification.
I've sent a copy to the press as well, so if they have any questions, they can contact me. And if anybody has any questions, we'll have a public hearing, which
It's
Should be
already set
26.
On the
26th,
26th,
yeah.
Thursday.
at 5 o'clock. So,
It's one of those that nobody comes to.
They might. You just jinxed us, didn't you? Well, as I was saying to Mindy today, 90% of our budget goes to salaries, which are union contracts, their benefits, which are union contracts. The equipment they use, it doesn't leave us much left, and she does a masterful job of trying to help everyone make all the requests, so thank you very much. We know I just made it sound very easy, but it's not.
So just to confirm, it's Thursday, the
Yeah.
26th. It is a workshop
mhm,
with the public hearing.
yeah,
Yeah,
Okay,
Thursday.
we don't need to vote for the presentation, so.
okay, new business,
I got nothing.
full business.
I got nothing.
Mayor has, oh, wait, Jackie.
Oh, well, I don't know. All right. I mean, unless this isn't, I mean, are we starting from scratch with the noise ordinance?
I don't
I
think
think
we're
we just need to sit and talk
Yeah, I
about it.
think we have, okay.
Same thing happened with the vacation rental
Okay.
permits. We all of a sudden got to the point where we sat there and said, if we did all this and got rid of every single one, would it bring the cost of the house, someone could afford it?
But I was listening to Bill Hurley, and if you've got to have a law that has this many exceptions. So that's why I'm saying, is it starting from scratch as far as language?
I think we look at, I mean, I think the challenge is that
Okay.
we've looked at so many different ones.
I know.
This is the one that like.
But
you know,
as,
I mean. I
as
get
we
the
heard, they were like, what, you,
parsimonious
yes.
Thing.
It is a crime that it was mostly businesses. We really haven't heard, and I really hope it is allowed.
But
to
that's
go on.
what this would do, is
Yeah.
increase business.
But
I
it
mean,
would be
that's
great
exactly
if
why.
we could put this up for a public vote, educate the public on what we're talking about and let the people talk.
Yeah.
But you know, and that might also hurt the businesses, but it would be nice if we could strike a balance that worked for both people. That'll become the challenge, really.
Yeah.
And you know, I think it helps that Ray Hipple was here, shouldn't use names, but an
Yeah.
apartment building and a motel were
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
At least they can hear the other side of the story, they know it's not. Cause I can guarantee you, he's been wondering, what the hell's taking you guys so long to put this in place? And now I think he understands.
Yeah.
So I thank the people on the noise committee for doing the hard work that I thank from speaking up tonight. Thank you, Chuck, for being part of that, because none of us are trying to do something that's ridiculous. But you do have to start at some point. You've got to go somewhere. And we'll just see where we end up.
Working groups.
Anything more on old business?
Nope.
Nothing on mayor items, commissioner reports?
Nope.
No. Grace is gonna do a piece, on childcare
Oh, good,
in the paper sometime soon.
good. Congratulations.
So.
Okay, so no one else for public comments?
I make a motion, we
Oh, did I get this? Yep, I did. Second, and that's it. All in favor?
I.
Thank you for your time, as always. I feel like I sound like Tom Yamas.
You recorded?
This is.
Oh, stop. Oh, I had to stop. Hang on.
Sorry.
Like,
Whatever.
no, that
You
the
wanna-
actual board meeting took 8 minutes.
Yeah.
Where do I do
Public
this?
hearing.
But this is what we
Yeah.
need. We need public input.
Please do.